We're going to protect the family farm, and we are going to end the EPA intrusion into your lives.
The biggest storm surge is being felt in places like Key Largo, north on the East Coast.
But, you know, as far as the 2, 3, 4 feet that some of these folks...
Emergency. The so-called Latuna Canyon fire scorching 7,000 acres, forcing 1,400 people to evacuate.
Regulations, by the way, will be cut down to a fraction of what they are now.
While protecting single species, backing entire ecosystems, and even combating climate change as a whole, the EPA has surely done substantial work for our environment. But what happens when this organization is largely defunded? As the Trump administration rose to power, improper political delegates were quickly elected and paid no attention to the well-being of Americans. Meet Scott Pruitt, a right-wing conservative and relentless disbeliever of climate change. While working as an Ohio Attorney General in 2011, he fired multiple lawsuits against the EPA for almost no reason at all, and even took the time to defend corporate industries who mixed into environmental affairs. 6 years later, as it turns out, this man somehow became the 14th administrator of the EPA and has spent the past few months implementing dozens of budget cuts to crucial environmental projects that provide proper funding for dealing with deforestation efforts, ensuring clean drinking water, responding to natural disasters, avoiding droughts, combating invasive species, and altogether providing a safe haven to the benefits and influences of the American environment, as well as that of the rest of the world. This, including thousands of jobs, prompts the EPA with a whopping $8.5 billion budget, which was soon to be well under $5 billion from the new budget cuts. More recently, Pruitt dismantled the Clean Air Act, a project that monitors greenhouse gas emissions from industrial sources, and has left the rest of the United States in deep, unrelenting concern. However, the question still stands. What happens when the environment, our actions, as well as the growing effects of climate change are all largely overlooked?
It's very disturbing to me that after so many years of moving slowly forward at recognizing the value of the environment and how we can peacefully coexist with nature, restore nature, and benefit from it, to have an administration come in that just is ignoring every piece of science out there and clearly willing to make decisions that will cause long-term harm. I mean, looking at the coal industry back east, the idea that they should allow coal industries to dump their broken rock and rubble into canyons and valleys because it's cheaper, just destroying the entire watershed. Having Scott Pruitt as the administrator he's completely admitted that he doesn't believe global warming, that they reject all of the science around global warming, and to have somebody in the government that says they don't believe the science to be in charge of the science is just ridiculous to me.
At the start of the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution began, and with it came the start of massive carbon emissions. Most importantly, we soon began to prioritize petty wealth over the irreplaceable being what is called our environment. And although most individuals started to notice drastic changes to the environment, no one stepped out to make a difference. That's not all. The two world wars were nonetheless effective against the environment. Continual trench construction in World War I and those infamous weapons of mass destruction from World War II ravaged landscapes to irreplaceable conditions, and with the penniless economy during the post-war years, America never once attempted to improve their environment.
The environmental agenda now before the Congress includes laws to deal with water pollution, pesticide hazards.
During the early 1970s, we began to implement large amounts of federal funding for the sake of the environment. Following this was the founding of the EPA, at least a dozen projects, as well as the presidential election of Richard M. Nixon. In comparison to the Trump administration, as well as Pruitt, Nixon's right-wing idealism also advocated for industrial growth over the overall state of the environment. And although the EPA received a $1.3 billion budget in federal backings, the rest of our government began to focus on more pretentious causes such as war, healthcare, and even efforts in re-establishing connections with corrupt businesses. In an instant, we transitioned from being environmentally savvy to an immense, overproducing, and highly industrious nation.
We can create an economy with good income, and it was pretty clear that under the Obama administration, all of his movements towards clean energy produced so many more jobs, produced so many more well-paying jobs, really led to an enthusiastic and literate and scientifically conscious community of workers. And so the movement away from coal towards the clean energy sector was incredible for the economy. So this idea that moving away from coal destroys the economy, it's just simply false. There's no evidence that supports that.
So by defunding environmental projects at large,
we are putting intricate ecosystems, endangered species, and several natural resources at risk almost every day.
We're giving corporate influences their own say in what should be done about the American environment.
and through this we have made the way we deal with climate change unjust and commonly argued through quick succession.
And although combating this will face obstacles on a political scale,
there is certainly much we can do to help this cause as individuals.
We shouldn't allow the EPA to be so drastically changed.
Because our environment isn't so simple.
It provides intricate ecosystems and gives back to the total state of the world as well as its inhabitants.
But the world has waited long enough.
It's time to wake up.